Welcome to our 938 podcast. I'm so glad that you have joined us today. I just want to take a little bit of time to share with you about the needs around the world for the gospel of Jesus Christ. Recently, I was in a Bible college class sharing about the needs around the world, and one of the students asked me this question: if you could send a missionary to one country that has the greatest need, where would that be? What country would that be? And that was a really hard question to answer because really there are so many great needs all around the world. And really we need missionaries to go everywhere. And so it was not an easy question to answer. However, I did tell them about places that are ripe for the harvest. For example, in Cambodia, it's a country that is very ripe. The harvest is very ripe, and many people are coming to know Jesus Christ. And yet I told them that we no longer have BBFI missionaries in Cambodia. In fact, there are 40 countries where we used to have missionaries that we no longer have missionaries in. Right now, we have 81 missionaries in the approximately 200 countries in our world. When I think about it, the question that student asked me is really a question that all of our churches should be asking. It is true, God is the one who calls, and the Holy Spirit leads and guides and directs. But I believe our churches should be praying about specific areas in the world, praying intentionally that God would send someone to those places, maybe even someone from their own church. So I'd like you to consider several places around the world of great need. First of all would be Europe. Does Europe really need more missionaries? Europe is one of those places that had the gospel light shining bright, but over the last many years it has started to fade a little bit darker and darker. So let me give you a few reasons why we do need missionaries, more missionaries in Europe. First of all, Europe is not a reached continent. The statistics show us that there are the low number of believers in Europe mirrors the same low number of believers in the 1040 window. Spiritually speaking, it is a very dark continent. And then secondly, Europe offers opportunities to reach people all around the world. All around the world. In many parts of Europe, you will find people from Syria and Libya and Iran, other parts of the Middle East, and from across North Africa. Well, actually, when you think about it, there are people from all over Africa that are moving into Europe. Warfare, healthcare, and economic reasons are what are driving these people into Europe. And so God is taking these situations, some of it is tragic situations or hardships that people are finding themselves under, and God is using those to direct them toward Europe, where we have churches who can then reach those people with the gospel. So we need people to be there, ready to welcome them in and share the love of Jesus with them. The third reason is churches are looking for spiritual leaders in Europe. Many churches across Europe, and especially in the United Kingdom, are really barely able to stay open. In fact, many of them that are open only have a few of the older generation attending those churches. Oftentimes they have no leaders, and many church buildings are being closed or being changed into pubs or even mosques. This provides many opportunities for us to send leaders over to that part of Europe and UK to help those churches with their leadership. There are some churches now where we have missionaries that are leading them, and now they are beginning to evangelize their neighborhoods, and people are being baptized where the waters have not been stirred for many, many years. So yes, indeed, Europe is in great need of more missionaries. And then consider the 1040 window. For years, we spoke about the 1040 window as an emphasis for world missions, and I think perhaps we should still be talking about it today. 96% of the world's unreached people live in this part of the world, which stretches from West Africa and across Asia, from the 10 degrees latitude north of the equator to 40 degrees north. That means that there are 5.2 billion people in 8,875 people groups in that region of the world, the 1040 window. The top 50 least evangelized super cities are in the 1040 window. This is one reason why it's known as the resistant belt. It includes the majority of the world's Muslims, Hindus, and Buddhists. Additionally, there are many animists that live there, many Jews that live in this region, as well as many, many atheists. The 1040 window is home to some of the biggest or most populated unreached people groups in the world. And this would include people such as the Sheikh, the Yadava, the Turks, the Moroccan Arabs, the Pashtun, the Jat, and the Burmese people. Now, perhaps some of these you may have never even heard before. And then what about the restricted countries? Restricted countries are locations where missionaries find it hard or cannot even get an entry permit, especially to do missionary work. Typically, church activities are also restricted or regulated. There are often higher levels of persecution for believers in these restricted countries. While missionaries are restricted to going to these places, many are using creative means to enter and live there. This includes starting a business in the country, or maybe even broadcasting TV and Bible stories and Bible verses from a nearby country, or even taking a job in that country and then using that as an opportunity to witness to the people. All of this is in order to be a witness of Jesus Christ. While most restricted countries are in the 1040 window, that is not always true. For example, Cambodia, that I mentioned, is currently an open country, but it is located in the 1040 window. When you think about it, no door is closed to God, because God uses his people with creative means to go into those countries and share the gospel. Yes, many of them are really hard places, some of them even very dangerous, yet these people need Jesus. And then consider with me also the unreached people groups. Here's a list of countries with the most unreached people groups. You can see India, Pakistan, Indonesia, Bangladesh, China, Japan, Iran, Turkey, Thailand, and Nigeria. In Matthew chapter 28 and verse 19, Jesus left his disciples with a command, which is also a command for us today, to make disciples of all nations. Now, you might think of a nation as, say, Poland or Kenya, but the Greek word there is ethne, and that gives us a clear definition, or maybe brings it a little bit closer to ethnic group. So what are people groups? A people group is defined as a group or tribe where the gospel can spread without any barriers of understanding. This is often due to language or culture, social status, religious traditions, history, or any location barriers. An estimated 11,749 people groups exist in the world today. Any ethnic groups where there are less than 2% of the population are believers in Jesus is considered an unreached people group. Unengaged people groups are similar to unreached people groups, but there's a slight difference. Unengaged people groups are where there is no church planting movement and perhaps even no witness at all, or maybe just a few. And usually there is no written Bible in their language. So how many unreached people groups are there in the world today? Well, according to the Joshua Project, there are 7,080 unreached people groups. The Joshua Project then states that there are 3.2 billion people in these unreached people groups. This is about 42% of the world's population. There are unreached people groups where we already have missionaries and churches in places like Kenya and Tanzania. There are still tribes in those parts of the world where we still have no gospel witness among them. All over Africa, there are unreached tribes. You can go into the Andes Mountains of South America, and there are over 300 unreached people groups in the Andes Mountains. If we had one missionary for every 50,000 people in the unreached people groups, we would need 66,547 more missionaries than we have now. So how many unengaged people groups are there? Well, according to peoplegroups.org, there are 3,235 unengaged people groups. Many unengaged people groups are in very difficult parts of the world, like Chad in Central America, and China, and India, and Iran, and Nigeria. But there are many places in the world that are not so hard. In addition, there are 50 unengaged people groups which has very little or no gospel witness, and each of them have 50,000 in population. Think of this. One of the greatest unreached people groups in our world are the deaf. A lot of people don't know that. They share a common language. Yeah, there's a little bit of variation as you go in different parts of the world, but they share a common language, sign language. They share common culture, and they perceive themselves as a people group even before they consider what nation they live in. It is estimated that the global deaf population is 70 million people, with less than 2% who know and follow Jesus. The need is great. And then consider adopting a people group. Adopting an unreached people group helps your church to sort of take ownership of the Great Commission. The idea is that you do research about people groups, you pray about which one maybe you could adopt as a church, and you look for that unreached people group that your church can embrace and pray and do whatever you can to lead them out of the grasp of Satan into the loving arms of our God. Focus on this group. Have your Sunday school classes or different life groups in your church prepare presentations on this people group to share with your church that you are adopting. Organize prayer times that you can meet together and pray for them. Plan a missions trip to go to this people group. Locate a missionary that might be in the region that can then help get you there and begin to share the gospel. Do everything you can to learn about these people and get your whole church excited and and get that passion and that burden to reach them with the gospel. Then pray faithfully that their hearts would be prepared to receive the gospel. Pray that a team of missionaries would surrender to go and take the gospel to those people. You can find all the list of people groups of the world online at joshuaproject.net, or you can contact me and I'll give you information. Perhaps through your focus and burden for this people group, someone from your church might surrender to go. They might have been on the mission trip that you took, and while they were there, God put that burden and that passion in their heart for those people, and they go back and take the gospel to them. That would be so exciting. One of the reasons to go to every people group is because Jesus has commanded us to do so. Jesus commanded us to make disciples of all nations. It is his heart, it is the heart of God to care for the one sheep and the one coin and the one son. Our burden and concern should be that yet another generation will live and die, and these people groups of men, women, and children will still be unreached or unengaged. That ought to move your heart to think about another generation of groups and unengaged groups who may have yet to even hear the name of Jesus Christ. This means reaching people in Africa, Asia, Europe, the Middle East, Australia, the islands of the Pacific, the Caribbean islands, Latin America, North America, and literally all around the world. Oswald J. Smith said this, "Why should anyone hear the gospel twice before everyone has heard it once?" Will you be someone who is willing to become more involved in the Great Commission? You can do this in one of three ways, or even all three ways if you think about it. First of all, you can do this by going and making disciples wherever you are, whether in your city, your country that you live in, or maybe going to a country in another region. Would you consider going and making disciples? Secondly, giving by faith so that missionaries can go. Not giving reluctantly or under obligation, but giving cheerfully with a passion so that people can hear the gospel of Jesus Christ. And then third, pray to the Lord of the harvest that he would send more laborers into the field. And that brings me to the 938 challenge. We've talked about this a lot. Actually, it comes from Matthew chapter 9 and verse 38. In verse 39, Jesus said to his disciples, "The harvest is plenteous, but the laborers are few." And then he said in verse 38, "Pray ye therefore the Lord of the harvest, that he would send forth laborers into his harvest." Would you take up the challenge to pray for more laborers? I believe one of the reasons why we see fewer people surrendering and going is because there are fewer praying. Jesus said to pray. So I challenge you to set your alarms and pray for more laborers at 9:38 in the morning or 9:38 at night. The 938 challenge. And then that brings us to Project 938. This is something that our office is doing to get many churches around the world to be praying together for more missionaries, for more laborers in our churches, for more church planners in all of our countries. Project 938. This year, we have a little bit different emphasis. We are focusing on different regions over the next few months. Now, in May, it's about the 938 project. So if you go to project938.world, there will be a link. And you can download videos and social media graphics and information about peoples around the world and the 938 Project and begin showing those in your church. And then in May, you'll have another link up there, which will be about Africa. So in June, we're going to concentrate on praying for that region, and there'll be videos from people in that region and all kinds of good information you can share with your church. And then the next month, another region, and then another region, all the way until October 2nd, 2022. On October 2nd, 2022, we have our 938 Sunday, when churches around the world, over 1,000 churches, are going to join together on that Sunday and really give a concerted effort to pray for more laborers. Let's finish the task that is before us, that God has given us to take the gospel to our generation. Now, you remember the question that I posed at the beginning that was given to me in the Bible college class? What field would I send a missionary to that I could send with the greatest need? You know what the answer is? That field is the world. The field is the world. Let's send more missionaries. Would you be willing to go? Would you be willing to give? And would you pray so that God would send more? God bless you.